Diving in the deep end. Mate, I wanted to dissect something that you said on one of your speeches of movement is healing.
Okay.
How?
How?
Yeah.
Well, um, intentional movement can be even more healing than just movement. But we are fundamentally made to move. It's just part of who we are. That goes back to our ancestors and just some of our primal instincts and needs. These are built-in mechanisms that we are born with. And so when you're able to feed that need to move, it speaks to the physiological health that comes from incorporating the mental and physical sides of us. There's been a lot of research that's come out that talks about being able to move intentionally, and even combining that with being outdoors in nature. So going outside for a run or being able to do something more challenging, doesn't matter if you're rucking, pulling a sled, um, carrying some weight around, that those together can actually even increase your ability to heal. Um, Reducing anxiety and depression is by as much as like 35%.
Wow.
So that's pretty profound.
Mm.
And it really speaks to the fact that we're not made to be sedentary. We're not made to sit in a cubicle inside of, you know, an office with this fluorescent lighting for hours and hours on end. We know that sedentarism has been linked to, reduction in lifespan and increase in chronic diseases and cardiovascular issues and other health issues. Um, so, there's tons of information that can kind of support that we need to be moving, and we feel our best when we do.
It really is like a creative process, right? Like it's the interaction physically between like ourselves and the world around. And I find like it's also that interaction mentally with ourselves too, right? Like there's something that's bugging us, or maybe we're a little down about certain things. The blues have hit us, the sads maybe with in winter. And it's like, oh, something's not quite right. I'm not quite at my equilibrium. I'm a little bit down, I'm a little bit up. What's going on? And I love it how you said pull the sled or push the sled or go for a hike or go outside, right? Like this, it's usually tedious. It's usually quite monotonous. It's not the Franz of the workouts, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
you can't think about anything. It's usually a little bit tough. What you're just gonna grind through it. And it's this weird like piecing the jigsaw pieces together of, oh, I can now see the picture of myself. I think back quite regularly of used to live in the South Island of New Zealand in Christchurch, and there was a trail called Rapaki. I'd get there like 4 o'clock in the morning, it'd be pitch black, and I'd be like, right, okay, I'm gonna just kind of goes up like so, pretty steep gradient, and it's not very far. I get 15 minutes into the walk, and I'm like, oh, I know what to do now.
Mm.
Obviously, you finish the walk, you get to the top, otherwise you'd be annoyed at yourself. But like everything just kind of gets written in the way it's supposed to. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. This is how I'm going to attack the week, or this is how I'm going to attack this situation. And it really does unlock what we need to be doing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just the hormones that are released naturally through exercise, and that creates euphoria, from accomplishing something. That in and of itself is enough power to create a mindset shift and
Mm.
start your day, set the tone for how you're going to approach a lot of things. It's kind of like the GSD, get shit done list, right? So you start off with a great workout, hydration, all those great things that kind of begin your routine. And then you can go and attack your GSD list.
Mm. It really does start on a high, start with something difficult, start with something you don't want to do. Just the
Yeah.
the level of pride you get for yourself of like, oh my God, I just did something that I didn't want to do. Or notoriously I'm bad at, whether that's going to the gym or reading, stretching, getting your water in. It's like, oh, you started on a little win. You've gathered that up. Now you've got a little bit of momentum. We can go forward with this.
Yeah. It's the doing the thing that you don't necessarily think you're capable of, want to do, um, holding back on.
Yeah.
When you're able to, like you said, accomplish that, it gives you that little win. That's where motivation comes from. It's not you need motivation to do those things. You need discipline and just sometimes that push of like, we're going to do this. Um, and then you see, in fact, that you are capable of doing hard things because we are.
Mm,
And that is like the little win we needed to give us just a little bit more of encouragement to try something else. It's like, well, if I can do this, then I wonder if I can do that. And if I can do that, well, then I sure as heck could probably do this. And now we're starting a great conversation and a great dialogue. Um,
mm,
we need those small wins to help us towards the greater, bigger things that we want to accomplish. We can't just go big. We have to start small. We can think big, but we have to start small. That's how we
mm.
get to the bigger goal.
Think big, start small.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. That needs
Yeah.
to be on a t-shirt.
It takes time, right? And we're not very patient, especially when we live in a society and in a world that there is cheap dopamine everywhere. We get these quick drips left and right. Everything's at a touch of a button. You know, you might as well DoorDash me my health at this point. I mean, why not? You can Amazon Prime me just about anything I want. So why can't I get fit and get this quick fix as well? And it just doesn't work like that.
Mm. What do you think is the main factor that stops folks from trying to do hard things or from the willingness to do hard things? Because it's like people are like petrified of it. It's like, oh no, this is gonna be really uncomfortable, or this is gonna hurt. And it's like, you don't need to like have an anxiety attack about going to the gym and hitting me 5 burpees. It's like we can do something. We can break it down to the smallest of margins.
The bigger the gap between the time of when you've done something challenging um occurs between the last time and the time you're being asked to do it or you're asking yourself to do it, the larger that gap gets, the more petrifying and terrifying it becomes. So we've gotten so far away from who we are fundamentally as humans with these modern conveniences that have just evolved. It's like, be careful what you wish for. There are some great things that have come out, but there are also some things that have not been good for us. And at the end of the day, we have not, evolutionarily speaking, weeded this part out of us yet. And I hope we don't ever get to that point. I mean, it would take a lot of time to get there, but at this rate, we could see that. And I don't even know what the human race would look like at that point. But for now, at least in my lifetime, we have to speak to those needs. And the further away we get from it, the body and the mind are very instinctual. It will tell you if you're paying attention, you will know, and you'll be able to meet that need. That's what emotions are. That's what thoughts are. That's what behavior is. It's when you have the disconnect and you ignore that and you try the easy way out, the quick fixes, the modern conveniences can get in the way, that the next time you actually do try to go do something hard, it feels scary as hell. It feels so foreign and so challenging. It's because it's the gap's too big, right? So now it takes a lot more of dipping the toe back in the water, but it's kind of like a wading pool. Then we get to the feet and the ankles and so on and so forth. And people have, just been so afraid because they've gotten in their own head and they've spiraled and convinced themselves that they are incapable. They've allowed others to convince them that they are incapable. They've allowed society and the trends and norms to convince them they are not capable. And it's created this dependency now where I am so reliant upon other things to help me to feel good. And I don't have the independence anymore to think that I can do these things alone. Um, so I think that's kind of where we have evolved to since the inception of the internet, primarily, and the modernization of technology. It's just grown so rapidly and so quickly. I mean, at some point, it took us, a couple of years before the next model or innovative, evolution of that particular thing would come out. Right now, think about it. Think about the beginning of the iPhone, just as an example. Now there's a new version of that iPhone every 6 months.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's
Yeah.
so rapid. We cannot keep up with that. And it's just keeping us from being more of who we're supposed to be. That's my biggest feeling, is that we and there's some other factors there, but like, you know, we're not as social as we used to be. We don't spend time with tribes like we used to. We're much more isolative. We're on autopilot. We're constantly going. So we're stuck in this hyper arousal state. And that state is just a very anxious, provoking state to be in. So now ask us to sit down and relax and just be still. You've just asked me to do the hardest thing ever. Are you
Yeah.
crazy? Like, I can't do that. It's profound, honestly. It really is.
Yeah, it's mental. It's like we're attached by a string and being pulled in a direction. It's like we can't actually tread water anymore. We can't sit still. I,
Mhm.
I quite often, ironically, but I quite often think how little people think these days. Just kind of
Yes.
sit there and let the mind just kind of go where it wants and try and really dissect, either how you're feeling, what you think about certain things, those whole existential crisis of why am I here? What is this thing? Like, I think we're supposed to wrestle with those questions because then, you arrive at the gates of your purpose at the end of the day, rather than just
Yeah.
going, oh, okay, I saw a fucking TikTok video and it's like, I'm going to go do this now. You're like, sweet, Daphne, like you go do your thing. Like I'll see you in 2 weeks and you're going to be doing something different. It's like you need to embark upon that journey for a long fucking time because you end up hitting roadblocks and then understanding different things and learning different lessons. And then, you get to the quote unquote expert, which I think nobody does, right? Expert just means you know enough to know you don't actually know enough. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, like I'm just a student for life of this thing. And then you end up gathering a hell of a lot more information. The only thing I know is I know nothing. Um, yeah, it really is scary how much we are aroused the whole time in terms of just mentally switched on. And I'm like, okay, I'm going from this thing to that thing to this thing to that thing.
Yeah.
And you know who the bloody worst is? Fucking coaches, man. This class, that PT, then I have to train, then I gotta clean the toilets, then I gotta program, then I gotta go from here, then I gotta get home and I got 5 hours sleep and you gotta get up again. You're like, ah, okay. This is a little bit more than I
Yeah.
can chew.
I actually did a podcast not that long ago and have talked quite a bit about burnout, particularly for owners and coaches, just because, that's a space that burnout's kind of on the rise across the board. I think people are just burnt out in life in general
Yeah.
and have an inability to cope. A lot of that being what we allow ourselves to put on ourselves, so self-inflicted, as opposed to, you know, a true reason to be burnt out,
Mm.
um, due to a number of factors. But um, helping coaches and owners trying to figure out how to keep this to be the thing that they love, finding purpose and meaning, making time, as you mentioned, for self-reflection. Because if you don't ever have time to be still, you have no time to process and reflect what you've done. So you can't create, you can't um, know what to do next and where to go and how to be innovative because you've never thought about the thing. So if you're just jumping to the next thing, you're not taking in and storing anything. There's nothing meaningful about that. There's nothing purposeful about that. So we really have to balance that. I tell people oftentimes, like, look, slow to grow builds character, fast to grow builds ego. There's no reason for you to just jump in and allow fear to, you know, um, be the thing that drives your decisions. Nothing good comes from fear-based decisions. So if you're going to be a coach, if you're going to be a great owner, you've got to be able to be methodical and mindful about your decisions and make them purposeful. Your time will come, your growth will come, but it's an investment. It's not something that happens overnight. If you peak too quickly, it's going to run out just as quickly as well, right?
Yeah.
So enjoy the journey. That's why we get into this. If you're getting into it for the right reasons, and you should ask yourself those questions, because being a gym owner and a coach it's not a hobby. There's lots of other things can be hobbies. Be doing it for the right reasons because you're trying to really help people. Um, and if you really want to help people, you can't do it from being burnt. You
Mm.
cannot be an effective coach if you're burnt out. People will feel it, they will see it. It's disingenuous. There's nothing authentic about that. There's nothing intentional and meaningful. And they're not getting the best experience that they can, and the best version of you. So healed people help heal people, right? If I'm taking care of myself, I'm doing my own healing, my own self-care, caring for my mental health hygiene each day. I've got a great routine. Then I'm going to be able to show up and be the best coach, the best owner I can be, and I'm going to be present. If I don't do those things, you're going to get what you give.
I really like how you put that, mental health hygiene.
Yeah. Everyone has a mental health hygiene routine. It could be a good one, it could be a not so good one, but we all do it.
Yeah.
And that's going to, what you're doing determines on how healthy your hygiene is,
Mm.
but you have to care for it.
It is wild how many people do quote unquote the wrong things and then wake up 6 months down into the hole and be like, oh my God, look what happened to me. Like nothing happened to you. You made it. You created this. You caused this. And guess what? That's okay. We all do it. We've all ended up in the bottom of a fucking hole and been like, oh damn, this is not good. I'm gonna have to claw my way out. Don't keep going in the same direction. Don't keep doing what you've been
Yeah.
doing. Like, you gotta have the courage to be like, oh, I fucked up. Like, guys, I might need a little help. Maybe you do it on your own, whatever. But you have to be able to turn around. You gotta try something different. You gotta change, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing the same thing over and over, we know what that is, right? Um, and if you learn from it, then great. Like for me, there are only two things. There's either lessons learned or there's wins. That's just how my brain works. There's no such
Mm.
thing as failure. I'm learning something along the way, or I'm winning, period. That makes it easy for me to not stay stuck in anything for too long. Because if that's taking up too much time and space, then I can't continue to persevere and move forward. Um, I need to learn from it. I need to stay with it, be uncomfortable with it for as long as I need to in order to learn whatever lesson that may be. And that's going to vary from thing to thing. But if I just continue to repeat it, that's lack of self-awareness. And we just call that a pattern,
Mm.
right? Second chances without behavior change is just a pattern. That's all that is. Um, so
How did you arrive at this mentality?
many years of practice. I've been working on my mental health since I'm like 16 years old. I've surrounded myself over time by the right people. And
Mm.
it's taken a while, right? I think the older I get and the more experiences I have, the more education I get, the wiser I become.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, there's a lot of still moments because if you can't, like we said earlier, if you can't be still, you can't learn. You cannot process, you cannot reflect. Um, and I'd say there's probably been some tremendous growth in the last 4 or 5 years. Um, I've just really had some great mentorship. Coaches need coaching, like we all
Hmm.
need something and someone. I don't think anybody successfully does things on their own. Um, we learned it from somewhere. I mean, if we're lifelong learners, then it's really hard to say that you did something without some type of guidance or mentorship.
Agreed.
And a lot of good mental health hygiene, right? Like mindsets is skill work. It's just like any kind of skill, you have to practice it. So from doing it for myself and then the work that I do with clients and in my practice, as well as the coaching that I do and ownership, being a leader to me is very important. And I don't feel that it's um, effective unless I'm doing what I'm saying. So if I tell you something, it's not anything I wouldn't do myself. Um, and that's what I think makes me an honest and good quality leader, in what I do. So there's a lot of mindset skill building constantly. Um, and that's just how I see it, is like these skills that I'm consistently sharpening. Most powerful tool is the reframe.
Mm.
I'm constantly reframing things in my head, and that makes it easy for me to see things as opportunities. So it's like we're solution focused, right? What is the solution? I can identify the problem once, but now I want to work on how I'm going to address it. I'm
Yeah.
not going to sit here and repeat the problem over and over and over and dwell on that, because that doesn't get me anywhere. So it's a mindset shift. It's really, truly a shift in your mentality, and it's constantly living there.
How much time a week do you sit in that stillness? Is it a little every day? Is it like a half a day a week? What do you do?
I've never timed it, because sometimes it's more than it's others. Just depends on what's going on for me. But I would say there's a little bit of time each day, because one of my favorite times to do it is at night before I go to bed.
Mm.
It's a way to calm my body down as well. Um, so I'll just lay there and I'll reflect on my day, and I'll, kind of say to myself what I'm grateful for, what my wins were. Um, and then if there's anything that's like weighing on my mind, you know, think about how, like, okay, it's got to wait till tomorrow. Like, I've done what I could for today, and that's enough for me. Wake up, new day, continue chipping away at it. So it's
Mm.
conversations like that that can put me at ease, because the more you step into a higher level leadership position, the pressure is there. And as we were kind of saying before we started the call, and this conversation, is pressure is a privilege if it's purposeful. And so I think for me, my I know my purpose and my why so deeply. It's really important for me to have that quiet time so I can constantly make sure that I'm staying on course with the mission. It's really easy to get distracted, um, and emotionally caught up in things. So if I don't do that work of stillness and reflection, it pulls me away from that. And my goal is too big. The people that I'm serving is too important for me to lose sight of that. So it could be anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours in a day, every day of the week. Sundays are a big day of reflection for me. I spend probably a little bit more, but yeah, a lot of time.
I love you for saying that because again, it touches on what we were saying before of like, I don't have time. You
Oh,
know,
you have time.
you and I will have heard that probably 15 times a day, right? I
The
don't have
worst
time.
rationalization.
It's like, okay, pal, like, yeah, sure, you don't have time, whatever. But it's like I like notebooks, right? So I got bloody
Yeah,
everywhere.
same.
And I like the morning. I like the stillness of the morning, which is basically I get up basically in the middle of the night because everybody's asleep. You know, nobody
Yeah.
wants anything from me. I don't. I have to do a certain checklist before I even look at the clock on my phone. Like it's in on charge in a different room. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, once you're woken up, it is a fresh sheet of paper. Cool. What are you thinking? How do you feel? What's going on? How are we going to plan the day? And I find like it really is like enlightenment in a way
Hmm.
because you are no longer crowded with the noise of the world, which everybody's shouting at the moment, mate, and nobody's got anything to say.
Yeah.
I was like, take some time, figure out what you want to say, and then say it. Rather than just screaming from the rooftop and you're like, okay, let's have a conversation. What do you want to say? And they're like, I'm hurting. It's like, okay, what about it? What are we doing? Where are we going? Um, I'm hurting. Like, okay, dude. Like, you've got to spend the time with yourself first, and that's the first step and the hardest, right?
Absolutely. Well, and a lot of people have it, the opposite way. They think if they're giving time to themselves that they're being selfish. And I've had to debunk that more times than I can even count.
Mm.
It's quite the opposite. You are giving more to others when you're giving to yourself first. You have
Agreed.
something to give.
Completely
If
agree.
you don't have the capacity, then you can't really give. You think you're giving something, but you're really not. You can't give what you don't have. And so that's why it's important, to do the healing work, because again, healed people heal people. If not, we're just repeating cycles and patterns of behavior, and we're just passing that on.
It's just like preparing for a class, right? If you half-ass the preparation period, you're going to get into that class and it's not going to be that great. Let's be
No,
honest. It's going to take 60 minutes, maybe maybe a little bit longer, right? We all fuck up timelines. It's going to take 60 minutes, hopefully, and you're going to miss certain things. Okay, cool. If you actually put in the preparation for yourself to, okay, we're going to be here and we got timestamps and we're going to hit this, and I know these people coming in and I know what part I'm at today. You're assessing your mood today. Maybe you're a little bit too grouchy, so you need less talking time, right? You're going
oh
to go in,
yeah,
you're going to take a wonderful class. Or at least you're going to set
100%.
yourself up for that, right? You're going to set yourself up because you've done the work for yourself to help more folks. That whole selfish thing again, I think it's a buzzword that's thrown around because people don't want to do the work.
Mm.
I think it's a way out.
Yeah, we rationalize a lot to ourselves. I mean, it's the same thing as the comment you made about not having time.
Yeah,
That's couldn't be more from the truth. You don't use your time wisely. I mean, the mind makes things bigger than they are, which is why when you write things out, like you're talking about planning out a class, or, as I think of things, even in my reflection time, I usually either have a notebook next to me or nearby. And worst case scenario, I will grab my phone, stop and write it in my notes section, because some things are very noteworthy and I have that moment and it's like, perfect. That's what I needed. Um, and when we can get it out, we realize that it's not as big of a deal as we thought it was. Just like
yeah,
time, when we can plot out time, we realize that we have far more time than we think. I mean, statistically speaking, 16 hours a week is wasted on social media. They like, imagine 16 hours back in your day, in your week. People tell me, oh, I don't have time to work out. Well, there's 168 hours in the week. Are you trying to tell me you don't have 3 hours to move your body? I find that so hard to believe. So it comes down to, structure, routine, choices, priorities. I promise you, if it means something to you, you will make time for it.
Mhm. I got three questions.
You have three
What's
questions?
yeah?
Okay.
What's the greatest piece of life advice you've ever received?
Just one, huh? Um, let's see. That I have the capability to do and be anything I want. Believe it or not, I didn't always believe that, but I really, truly, in my soul, believe that,
Why didn't you believe it?
because there were enough distractions and noise out there that I bought into that said otherwise. And for a small part of my life, I believed him.
Mhm. I think a lot of folks are in that boat
Yeah.
still, and it's hard to see. It really is. And I think if we're able to give them a little bit of hope at the start, right? A little bit of faith, a little bit of courage, and then they prove their competence to themselves, they start believing it.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful, whether that's on the chair behind you, whether that's in a CrossFit gym, whether that's at a coffee shop. You give a little bit of confidence into folks and they can do some wild shit, man. Humans can do some crazy, incredible things. I think more folks need to understand that.
Yeah. That's why I don't quite understand how people can be so, just, I guess, mean. honestly. Like you
Yeah.
could be the one person that says the one thing that changes it for someone. Why wouldn't you want to do that? What an opportunity.
Yeah, they're usually really hurting, right?
Yeah.
That
Hurt people, hurt
cliche,
people.
of course. And they're usually quite fascinating minds to try and dissect.
They
Usually
are.
very, very hurting individuals. But what's the worst piece of life advice you've ever received?
Um, that I shouldn't pursue the things I wanted to pursue. I basically was told, try to talk, like talked out of it. You shouldn't do that, or you're not capable of doing that for any reason. Could have been because I'm a woman, because I'm a mom,
Mm,
because I don't, I have the talent. You insert reason. It's been more than once, but you know,
mm.
you can't do that.
Look at you now.
Look at me now. It's probably my favorite thing to hear at this point because I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll show you.
fuck them.
Yeah.
Very northern man in me. I just turn around and say, fuck them all, you know?
I do that with my actions. I don't have to say those words.
Mm,
I let my actions speak louder than my words,
mm.
and try to make sure that my words and my actions line up. If I say something, I want to make sure that my behavior supports that.
You gotta do.
There's no, I mean, there's a lot of voice, like you said, there's a lot of talk out there. I mean, it's just infested, especially on the social media wave. Um, it's too easy to say that I'm going to do this, this, and this, or I have this, this, and this. Oh, yeah, cool. Let me see it.
And especially towards ladies. And I would even go further and say, especially towards mothers, right? Holy shit, everybody's got an opinion.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, piss off, man. This chick's gonna do what she's gonna do, you know?
Yeah.
But what are the three words you would tell your younger self?
3 words. Never give up.
Beautiful. Mate, this has been an honor and a privilege, mate, honestly.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great chatting with you.
I like dissecting conversations and interesting topics and, learning from very smart people. Trying to tag along the money blonde. Sometimes you get lost
Yeah.
in in behind.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite things to do is just to be around like-minded people and just share information. It's just, that's how you accomplish such great things.
Yeah, creative thinking, right? Like, just like,
That's
what's
it.
your perspective? And then, fuck, if you're like myself, you usually get proved wrong a lot. And you're like, oh, okay, interesting. We can attack it from that angle. I'm going to think about that next time I reflect or sit in 3 o'clock in the morning, when nobody else wants me. And you start thinking, you're like, wow, this thing is fascinating. This thing of life, it's pretty cool. It's pretty rad.
There's so many opportunities, such a privilege.
Yeah. Mate, thank you so much.
Thanks
This
for
has been
having me.
awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
I'll speak to you soon. And we got a project in the works. I'm going to email you about it. I'm going to want your uh, opinion on it,
I'd love to
expertise.
hear it.
So
Okay.
thank you. I'll speak to
Thank
you soon.
you. You got it.
Thanks, boss.
All
Have
right.
a great day.
Take care. You too.
Bye, everybody.